What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we're taking a look at a very fun deck, taking a look at the day 2 list from Lille Regionals, or Lille Regionals, however you pronounce it. But we are taking a look at Banette EX. Now, Banette EX is something that a lot of people have wanted to make work, but a lot of people could not make it work. And I think his name is Mateus. If I butchered the name, I apologize. I also have hiccups, I apologize, but Banette EX is a card that everyone has wanted to make work, and it just couldn't. The reason why is because Banette is similar to a card that we had in format Seismitoad EX. Seismitoad and Banette both have an energy type attack that does 30 damage and item locks. So back in the days of Seismitoad EX, it was very good because you could use double colorless, which was the equivalent to double turbo without the damage reduction. And you could do 30 damage, item lock your opponent. It was on a basic, and you could play things like Silent Lab, which were equivalent to Path to the Peak. So Banette EX is a little bit harder to work with, simply put, because it's an evolution. But the person that used this to make day 2 cracked the code, made it work. So here we are. So Banette EX, Everlasting Darkness, 30 damage. During your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. Then you have Poltergeist, which does 60 damage times the amount of trainer cards in your opponent's hand. So you item lock for a few turns, then go into Poltergeist for big damage. It works out great. The reason why this is good is because a lot of Stage 2 decks are not respecting their middle evolutions. So this means that with Banette, you can actually item lock things like Qianpao, Charizard, Pidgeotto, and really anything else that is a Stage 2 deck, aside from Gardevoir, simply put, because they run rare candies as their evolution line, and when they can't play the rare candy, they can't evolve. So, being paired with this, we also have a one-of the other Banette with the Puppet Offering. So once during your turn, you can put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand, and then you Lost Zone this Banette. So you Lost Zone the Banette and the Shuppets, but the reason why you run this is because you do run Cheryl, so it's a way to get back to Cheryl. Now, the way that this code was cracked was by running the Gardevoir engine. So we are running 3 memory skip rolls. The reason why we're running 3 of the memory skip is simply put because this is a deck that is designed around, locking your opponent out of resources, and memory skip can help to do that. We are running 3 Curlia with Refinement just to discard cards that you don't need anymore. And then along with that, we are running 2 Gardevoir EX. Now, Gardevoir EX is in here, simply put, because you can Cheryl a bunch of damage away into reattaching an energy and only dealing 20 damage to yourself and being able to item lock again. Along with that, you are also running Mew EX, which is good closers for games. You'll see in this video, it's really good against Charizard. And then also, you are running the Shadow Calyrex V. Most of the time, you use it for Shadow Mist against Mew, where during your opponent's next turn, they can't play special energy or stadium cards. So this means that if you're playing against something like Mew, you can put Path to the Peak in play, make it to where they can't get rid of the Path, and then they also can't attach special energies from their hands. So if they're playing the DTE build, it's a no-go. You get this out, go in second, they don't have an energy attached, they're not playing the game. So overall, this deck is super solid. We do have Calamitous Wasteland, just so that way you can potentially lock something in the active and go for an infinite loop as far as using Radiant Alakazam. If you bring up something that isn't an attacker but has a lot of HP, like Lumineon, you give it 2 retreat, you hit for 30, you move 20, you're basically dealing 10 damage to the active, moving 20 somewhere else. So basically a good infinite loop if you want to. Eventually it's going to die, whatever you are attacking, but after a long period of time, you can take multiple prizes and then clean up there. So as always, the deck list will be posted right here so you guys have a full clean view of it. The deck list will also be in the description so that you guys have a full clean list that you can copy and paste into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live in case you want to play Banette. As always, I want to thank you guys for everything. You guys have been amazing. You guys have been so supportive of everything that I've been doing on this channel, and seeing it grow has made me happy. So with that being said, if you guys can do me a favor, if you're new here, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and share this video with a friend if they are thinking about getting into Pokemon. This channel is designed for everyone, beginner friendly, intermediate friendly, and advanced friendly. So we are here for all things TCG, and I want to make sure that everyone feels welcomed and everyone feels appreciated, and make sure that everyone enjoys the game. So as always, thank you guys for everything. Enjoy the gameplay, and I'll catch you in tomorrow's video. Later. Alrighty, guys, into the very first game with Banette. We do have the option to go first, which means we have the turn 2 potential to item lock, which is fantastic. And our opening hand, we do mulligan. That would have been a great hand had we had something to start with, but it is all good. And if my opponent is playing something like Charizard, I think they're in for a bad time, especially if we can get the item lock off, just because then they can't do anything really to set up a Charizard. So I think it's all going to depend on how our hand goes and then what my opponent flips over. So we do mulligan twice, and this hand, not too great, but at least we do have access to Battle VIP Pass, so it's not as bad as it could be. So we do mulligan twice, and now we can see what my opponent is playing. And they are playing Charizard, so I'm going to assume that they're not playing the Charmeleons, which if they're not, then that's really good. So we'll just go into the Battle VIP Pass. This will allow us to get a Curlia going for the next turn, and then we'll grab Shuppet as well. So now we can put the energy onto Shuppet, and then next turn evolve, play Iono, and then we just need to hope that we can find an energy in order to retreat the Lumineon. So there is a Colress coming down. My opponent gets rid of a fire energy, so they are playing Lost Box Zard, it seems, unless they're just using Colress as draw. But okay, there is an Arc coming down. So they are going to be able to attack with the Arc, as they can, you know, evolve into it. But otherwise, we're in a good spot. We can get the item lock going. My opponent's going to have to burn a ton of resources. We can potentially get the Path to the Peak going. It all comes down to if we can get an energy for the next turn. So I think that's going to be the most important thing. There's an Artisan. So Artisan will let us thin out another Ralt, which means that we can get some more consistency going. And my opponent is just banking on us not getting anything going for the next turn. So I know that my opponent can't attack with the Arceus next turn, so we're doing good with that. Top deck Arven. Arven is not going to do too much for us, I don't think. So off of that, we'll just grab the Ralts. Is there anything that Arven could grab? Could grab Escape Rope. There is the Calamitous Wasteland as well. So we do have quite a few ways to get Psychic Energy. We have Fog Crystals, we have some other cards we're going to see, so I think we're okay to just evolve into the Banette and then play the Iono, and then draw some fresh cards, limit my opponent's hand, and just like that, we actually get quite a few cards that will do some good for us. So let's see, the first thing we'll do is we'll go Refinement and get rid of the Banette EX, since we do have one in play. And then we do have the Escape Rope as well as the Energy. And I think what we're going to do is just go Escape Rope. See what my opponent wants to go for. And then next turn, we're looking pretty okay with what we need to do. So my opponent will be able to use Artisan, but there's no way that they can get out of the item lock, so the Zard will not be coming out, which means if we can get Path to the Peak going, we're in a good spot. I'm going to hold on to this one Psychic, and aside from that, I think we are a-okay. So the first thing we'll do is the Everlasting Darkness, 30 damage, just going for the straight item lock. And if my opponent puts a DTE and then searches, it's rough, but it's not the end of the world. We just have to make sure that, you know, we can set up how we need to with the rest of everything. So my opponent going for the second Pidgey. So if we have to, what we might be able to do is get a Calamitous Wasteland going. We can potentially bring up a Pidgey, which means my opponent would have to use a double turbo to retreat, and we can just infinitely cycle through in order to KO things like the Pidgeys, the Charmanders, Arceus. We can get the infinite loop going, and it'll work out great for us. So it just comes down to how the rest of everything goes, and then we should be okay. So we do have access to Gardevoir as well. So if we need to set up something, we're in a good spot too. So there's Lumineon coming up. Not going to do us, too bad. We have the energy we can discard. And we also have a Battle VIP pass to get rid of. So the first thing we'll do is Artisan. We'll grab a Shuppet. And then we'll go Curlia. Get rid of the Battle VIP pass. And there is the Calamitous Wasteland. So now we have the boss Calamitous Wasteland combo, which means that we can pull off the infinite loop of what we want to do to my opponent. So this means that just to be safe, we can go attach, retreat, go into the Banette, play the Calamitous Wasteland, go boss's orders on the Pidgey, Ultra Ball, getting rid of these two. This will allow us to grab the Radiant Alakazam. And now we can just get damage going. I'm going to save the Gardevoir EX just so that way I don't have to worry too much. And we're just going to hit 30. And then we'll use the Alakazam just to continuously move damage, taking knockouts where we can, and just getting the rest going. The only issue is that if my opponent decides to boss Lumineon up again, it's going to be a little bit awkward, but it's not the end of the world in the sense, so we should be okay. So my opponent just goes for the pass, so that's fine. It's probably going to be a long game, so we'll go for the refinement. We'll get rid of the energy, and we get a Shuppet as well as Iono. So what we can do is use the Painful Spoons, and we're just going to start targeting down the Arceus. So we can just go for the 30 damage. And I don't think that there's any trainers I need. If my opponent finds a way to retreat, then we do have to, make sure that we have access to something like Cheryl. But I think right now we're okay. We have boss's orders as well. So as long as my opponent doesn't find a way to kind of get things going and we keep the item lock going, we're in a really good spot. So my opponent can use Gust for 20, but it's not going to do too much. They do have a 2 retreat, so there's another Battle VIP pass, so we're just going to focus on dwindling away the resources that we don't need. We get a Fog Crystal and a Level Ball, so Level Ball will allow us to grab the Curlia, which means that we can start digging a little bit more. So there is the Refinement. We'll get rid of a Shuppet, draw 2, and now we have some more cards to work with. So let's see. I don't think I need to evolve into this Banette just yet, so what we'll do is go for the Painful Spoons. We'll go 10, 10, and Mouse just decided to wake up, so now he is, getting ready to sleep. So now what we're going to do is just go for the Everlasting Darkness again, and if my opponent attacks with Arc or brings it up, we can knock it out with the Banette. We have access to Cheryl, as long as we can draw into it, and then there's not too much that we have to worry about on the other end. We just have to make sure that we can control what my opponent is doing, and then after the fact, we should be in a very good spot. We also do have access to the Calyrex, which means that we can gain the ability to set up as much as we need to. So we can set up 50-50s just to, take 2 prizes somewhere, go for the rest. So that might be the way that we do it. We might just kind of figure out the rest of what we need to do. But my opponent going Iono, and this is pretty much all that we're going to be doing. We're just going to be locking my opponent out of all of the resources that they could go for. There's the Arc V-Star, so my opponent can go for potentially another energy to retreat or a double turbo, and if they go for the double turbo, they're going to have to, attach to the Pidgeot. So not looking too rough for us right now. And we do have the Cheryl, and my opponent's Arceus cannot one-shot us, so we will be a-okay. So there is the retreat. There's the attach. My opponent retreating into the Arceus potentially. Oh, going into the Mew. So that is interesting. We don't have a way to get the Calamitous Wasteland back, but what we do have the ability to do is potentially hit something like Boss, and then we can KO the Arceus, and then start setting up the rest of what we need to do. So there is Arven. So what we'll do here is we'll grab the Psychic Energy. We'll go Fog Crystal once again, grabbing another energy. So I think what my game plan is I'm going to move the damage, and then we'll hit, and then we'll move the damage, and then we'll hit. Is that the best way to go about that? I feel like it is. So we'll go Refinement, get rid of the... we'll get rid of one Psychic, and we get Iono, so if my opponent actually goes for another prize, we'll be a-okay with that. So... let's see, I am down 3 Psychic, there is 4. We'll go for Refinement, again, just digging through the deck just to get rid of some things that we might not need. And we do have access to Ultra Ball as well. So what we'll do here is go Painful Spoons, move 10, take a prize here. And what I'm thinking the game plan is we take 2 prizes in 2 turns, and then we just go Mew into a big KO on a Charizard. So we'll just go for the Everlasting Darkness again for 30. My opponent's going to have an energy to retreat, which means that they can't attach for turn. They're going to have to play something like Escape Rope potentially as well. So we're looking pretty okay. They'd have to go Escape Rope Double Turbo. And if they don't have that, then they're out of luck. So there's an Ultra Ball. Not going to do them too much good. So there's the Jacques. Again, Jacques isn't going to do them too much good. They can't evolve unless they do play Charmeleon, which in this case they do. So I think what we're going to do is try and dig for another boss and just try to get some damage going. So there is the Artisan coming down. I think honestly we're probably just going to go knockout into Mew for the rest of the prizes. Is probably the best way that we have to kind of go for what we need to do. What we can do though, let's see. We can play the Path to the Peak to shut off my opponent's abilities. That way they can't use Charizard. So I'm thinking that's probably the best thing that we can do. So we're going to have to go Ultra Ball. Calyrex is not going to be a win con anymore. So we'll grab a Banette. Go into the Banette. Attach. And then what we're going to do here. Let's see. If I take a knockout here, no matter what my opponent brings up, I can knock out and then just go Charizard. So I don't hate that. The most that we can do with Charizard if my opponent takes 4 is 180, so 300. So I need to move 30 damage to a potential Charizard. So we'll get rid of the Curlia. Again, just drawing a couple more cards. And now what we're going to do is use the Radiant Alakazam. We're going to move 20 here. We're going to go for the Everlasting Darkness. I expect my opponent to take a knockout here. And then what we can do is get out the Gardevoir next turn. And then after, we can kind of go around and get the last 4 prizes. So we shouldn't be in a bad spot. I think we item locked my opponent for just enough time. So I could have played the Path to the Peak, but it would have hurt me if my opponent didn't get rid of it. So I think we're pretty much okay with that. So, and considering what's in my opponent's hand, we actually might be able to just go for a clean knockout with something like the Poltergeist. And if we do, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Let's see. My opponent has to potentially have 5 items in their hand. And if they are 5 trainer cards, and if they don't, I don't take a knockout. I feel like I would just much rather hope that they have 4. So I feel like the best way for me to do that is to go for the boss, because I think boss also forces my opponent to kind of over dig, if that makes sense. Because if I give my opponent a Charizard, then they're going to be able to rare candy this. Let's see. If I copy Trinity Nova, that only does 200 on my end, so I need to move damage regardless. So this is what we'll do. We'll go boss's orders into the arc, and then we'll go refinement, get rid of the Arven, draw us 2. So we get Super Rod, which is good. So we can go, let's see. My opponent is at 240. They only need 4 now. So let's thin some extra cards that we're probably not going to need. We can get rid of Shuppet, draw us 2. We'll use Fog Crystal. The last energy is in there that we need. That means we can go Fog Crystal. We can go Lost Vacuum. Get rid of the Path to the Peak. We'll get rid of the Artisan. I'm just trying to thin as much as possible just in case my opponent does Iono us. That way I can make sure that what I need gets drawn. So now we can go Ultra Ball, getting rid of the Iono and the Cheryl. Taking a look at what's in the deck. Okay, so my win con is set. I do have Fog Crystal in the deck, and I do have the ability to draw out of a possible con. And I think I'm okay too, in the sense that if my opponent KOs this Mew, I still have Super Rod and I still have ways to get to it. So I think putting the Mew down is correct. And then what we do, let's see. I need to move 10. Now that puts it at 300. So I need to hope that my opponent has 5 in their hand. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, awesome. So my opponent does have the rare candy. But I'm pretty sure that this Mew just kind of seals the deal in what we need it to do. My opponent can take some prizes. I think the only way that I lose is if my opponent decides to attack with this Charizard. I'm pretty sure that that's the only way that I lose, and that's because I don't have my third boss in the deck. Otherwise, I should be okay. And if my opponent decides to just boss this Mew, then we do have access to Poltergeist potentially, so again, it's not the end of the world. It's just a little bit more awkward than anything, but considering that my opponent brought up this Charizard, I'm pretty sure that we're okay. So there's the Burning Darkness for 600, and now we can actually go Gardevoir into 3 energy to use Mew and take a knockout. So we'll go with the Mew. And then we can go Fog Crystal just to see if there's anything in the deck that we need. And I don't think that there is. So we can go Gardevoir. Go 3. So there is 1, 2, and 3. And now we can copy Genome Hacking and we can hit for a total of 300 damage. Which means we can go Genome Hacking. Burning Darkness for 300, take the very last 2 prizes that we needed. And if we had boss, wouldn't have done too much. So there's the other boss, speaking of which. So I think that that turned out good. Considering the fact that this is a 20-minute gameplay right here, I think this is what we're going to cut it at. You guys get the gist of what Banette is supposed to do. You have ways to item lock, you have ways to kind of cycle through what you need. And everything else is support, just so that we can keep the item lock going. So if you guys did enjoy today's video, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. We're pushing 1,000 subscribers, and I kind of want to try and get there before the end of Christmas. So if you guys want to make that happen, do me a favor, share the video with friends, get them into Pokemon, show them the channel. Otherwise, Thank you guys for all of the support, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video. Later.